Amira wasn't the kind of kid who made a lot of noise. She didn't raise her hand unless she was absolutely sure, and even then she'd speak so softly the teacher sometimes asked her to repeat herself, but that didn't mean she wasn't paying attention. In fact, Amira noticed everything. The way the sunlight hit the chalkboard in the afternoon, how the lunch lady always gave extra fries to kids who looked sad, and how some students walked through the halls like they owned the place while others, like her, tried to disappear into the walls. She was 14, small for her age, with eyes that seemed to hold more thoughts than words. Her hair was always neatly braided, not because she loved doing it, but because her grandmother said it kept things simple. "Less fuss, more focus," Grandma would say every Sunday night while gently working through the tangles with coconut oil and patience. Amira liked that routine. It was one of the few times during the week when someone was fully there with her. No distractions, just the two of them, and the quiet hum of the old radio playing gospel songs in the background. School wasn't cruel to Amira, at least not at first. It was more like it forgot she existed. Teachers mixed up her name with other students. Group projects often left her as the note-taker while others did the talking. She didn't mind too much. She'd learned early that staying quiet kept her out of trouble. At home, life was full but not easy. Her mom worked double shifts at the hospital, often coming home long after Amira was asleep. Most nights, it was just her and Grandma in their small apartment on the edge of town, where the streetlights flickered and the neighbors knew each other by the sound of their footsteps. What Amira loved, really loved, was drawing. Not the kind of drawings you scribble in the margins of a notebook, but real sketches. The curve of a bird's wing, the tired smile of the bus driver, the way raindrops clung to window panes like tiny glass beads. She carried a worn-out sketchbook everywhere, its pages soft from constant use. During lunch, while others laughed and shouted across tables, Amira sat near the back of the cafeteria, pencil moving quietly across the paper, building whole worlds with lines and shadows. She'd joined the art club at school mostly because it was the one place where silence wasn't seen as strange. Ms. Delgado, the art teacher, never pushed her to talk. She just nodded when Amira handed in her work and sometimes left little notes like, "This light is perfect," or, "You see things others miss." Those notes lived in a shoebox under Amira's bed, right next to her mom's old nursing pin, a small treasure she'd found while cleaning out a drawer years ago. But lately, things had started to shift. It began with glances, quick sideways looks from a group of 8th grade girls who always stood near the lockers by the gym. At first, Amira thought she'd imagined it. Maybe they were looking at someone behind her. But then came the whispers. Not loud, just enough to catch the edge of her ear when she passed by. Once she heard someone say, "Why does she always look like that?" Another time, "Does she ever even talk?" She kept walking, eyes forward, sketchbook pressed tight against her chest like a shield. She didn't tell anyone. Not Grandma, not Ms. Delgado, not even her best friend from elementary school who now sat with the volleyball team at lunch. Amira figured it would blow over. Kids got bored. They'd find someone else to stare at, someone louder, someone easier to rattle. She just needed to stay steady, keep her head down, and get through the year. Her days followed a rhythm. Wake up at 6:15, pack her own lunch, peanut butter sandwich, apple, granola bar, catch the 7:05 bus, sit in the third seat from the back, same spot every day. After school, she stayed late twice a week for art club, then walked the 15 minutes home, headphones in, listening to old jazz playlists her mom had made years ago. On those walks, she'd imagine herself somewhere else, maybe in a quiet studio in the city, or sketching by the ocean, somewhere no one knew her name but admired her work. One Tuesday, the sky turned gray by noon. Rain tapped against the classroom windows like impatient fingers. Most students groaned. They'd forgotten umbrellas, jackets, or both. But Amira didn't mind the rain. There was something comforting about it, like the world was taking a breath. After the final bell, while everyone rushed out to beat the downpour, she lingered. She'd promised Ms. Delgado she'd finish the outline for the hallway mural, a project meant to celebrate everyday heroes in their school community. Amira had chosen to draw the custodian, Mr. Ruiz, who always fixed wobbly chairs without being asked, and once gave her a pack of colored pencils when he saw her using broken crayons. The art room was peaceful in the after-school quiet. The only sounds were the scratch of her pencil, the distant rumble of thunder, and the soft drip of water from a leaky faucet in the sink. She lost track of time, absorbed in getting the lines of Mr. Ruiz's kind eyes just right. By the time she packed up, the school was nearly empty. The lights in the hallway were dimmer than usual, and the usual chatter of students had faded into silence. She headed toward the girls' bathroom near the science wing, her usual stop before the walk home. The hallway felt longer than normal, shadows stretching under the flickering fluorescence. As she pushed open the bathroom door, she heard footsteps behind her. Quick, purposeful. She turned slightly, but no one was there. Still, a prickle ran down her neck. Inside, she washed her hands, checked her reflection, braids neat, hoodie clean, eyes calm. She took a breath. Just get home, she told herself. You're fine. But as she reached for the door, it swung open. 3 girls stood there. Not just any girls, they were the ones from the locker group. Taller, louder, the kind who wore their confidence like armor. One leaned against the doorframe with a smirk. Another crossed her arms. The third just stared, eyes sharp like she was trying to figure out a puzzle. Look who's still here, the first one said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. All alone. Amira stepped back instinctively, heart thudding, but kept her face neutral. She'd learned long ago that showing fear only made things worse. We were just talking about you, the second girl added, stepping inside. Wondering why you act like you're too good to talk to anyone. I don't think that, Amira said quietly. Could have fooled us, the third girl snapped, slamming the bathroom door shut behind them. The lock clicked. That sound, small, metallic, final, sent a chill through Amira's whole body. They weren't here to talk. They were here to trap her. And for the first time in a long time, Amira felt truly seen, but not in the way she'd ever wanted. The air in the bathroom felt heavier the moment the lock clicked. It wasn't just the smell of cheap soap and damp tile. It was the kind of quiet that presses against your ears, like the whole world is holding its breath. Amira stood near the sink, hands still damp, her sketchbook tucked under one arm like it might somehow protect her. She didn't move, didn't speak. She just watched them. The 3 girls spread out, not blocking the door exactly, but making it clear she wasn't leaving. The one who'd spoken first leaned against the row of sinks, arms crossed like this was all just a game to her. You always look so serious, she said, voice light but eyes sharp. Like you think you're better than everyone. I don't, Amira said, voice steady even though her pulse was racing. Then why don't you ever talk? Why do you just sit there drawing like you're in some fancy art school or something? The second girl stepped closer, her sneakers squeaking on the wet floor. You think you're special? Amira shook her head slowly. I just like to draw. Yeah, well, maybe no one wants to see your drawings, the third girl snapped. She flicked a paper towel at Amira's shoulder. It missed, but the gesture stung more than if it had hit. You act like you're invisible, but you're always watching. Like you're judging us. I'm not judging anyone, Amira said, and meant it. She'd spent so much time observing people not because she thought she was above them, but because she was trying to understand how to move through the world without getting hurt. Watching was safer than speaking. Listening was safer than reacting, but they didn't care about her reasons. They wanted a reaction, any reaction. Laughter, tears, anger. Something to prove she wasn't as calm as she seemed. Whatever, the first girl said with a shrug. But her eyes stayed locked on Amira. You know what? Stay here. See how you like being invisible when no one's coming to get you. They backed toward the door, still watching her like she might lunge at them. Then with a final smirk, the one by the door twisted the lock again, this time from the inside, and pulled it shut behind them. The sound echoed like a door closing in a dream. Amira heard their laughter fade down the hall, bouncing off lockers, then disappearing completely. Silence rushed back in. She stood there for a long moment, listening. No footsteps, no voices, just the hum of the overhead light and the soft drip of a leaky faucet. She walked to the door and tried the handle. Locked. She knocked, first gently, then harder. Hello? Her voice sounded small in the empty hallway beyond. No answer. She checked her phone. 4:37 p.m. Battery at 3%. She tried to call Ms. Delgado, but the screen went black before the call connected. She shook it, pressed the power button. Nothing. Dead. Panic started to rise, warm and prickly in her chest. She took a slow breath like Grandma taught her. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. She repeated it twice, then walked to the far stall and sat on the closed lid. She pulled her knees to her chest and rested her forehead on them. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to make her feel small, but it was the first time she'd been truly trapped. Outside, the rain kept falling. Thunder rolled in the distance, low and rumbling. The school felt like a different place after hours, emptier, stranger. The posters on the walls seemed to watch her. The trophy case in the hallway glinted under the emergency lights. Even the smell of floor cleaner felt sharper, colder. She thought about yelling. But what if no one heard? What if someone did and it was one of them coming back? She thought about climbing out the window, but it was high up and narrow, meant for ventilation, not escape. She thought about waiting it out. Surely someone would come eventually. Custodian, security, a teacher cleaning up late. But minutes stretched. 5, 10, 15. Her stomach twisted. She imagined Grandma wondering where she was. Her mom finishing her shift, checking her phone for a text that never came. She hated the idea of them worrying. Then footsteps. Her head snapped up. Slow, steady, coming down the hall. Her heart leapt. She rushed to the door and knocked hard. "Help, I'm locked in here." The footsteps paused right outside. She held her breath. A shadow passed under the door. Then, silence. The footsteps started again, walking away. She slumped against the door, blinking fast. Not tears. She refused to cry, but a hot, frustrated ache behind her eyes. Why didn't they stop? Didn't they hear her? But then something shifted inside her. Not fear anymore. Not helplessness. Something quieter, stronger. She wasn't going to scream. Wasn't going to beg. If no one was coming, she'd find another way. She walked back to the sink and splashed cold water on her face. Looked at herself in the mirror. Same braids, same tired eyes. But something in her expression had changed. Less like someone trying to disappear. More like someone deciding to stay. She pulled out her sketchbook. Flipped past drawings of birds, bus stops, Mr. Ruiz's gentle smile. Found a blank page near the back. Then, remembering the voice memo app her mom had shown her months ago, just in case, she powered on her phone one last time, using the tiny bit of reserve battery it sometimes held. The screen flickered to life. She opened the app, pressed record, and spoke clearly, calmly, like she was telling a story. Not to get sympathy, but to make sure the truth was saved. "This is Amira," she said. "It's Tuesday, October 14th, around 4:50 p.m. I'm locked in the girls' bathroom near the science wing. 3 students," she named them, voice steady, "followed me in after school, blocked the door, mocked me, and locked me inside. They left about 20 minutes ago. I've knocked. No one's come. My phone's about to die. If something happens, this is what happened." She stopped the recording, saved it, plugged her phone into the charger she always carried in her backpack, just in case, and laid it on the counter, hoping it would wake up soon. Then she did something unexpected. She tore a clean page from her sketchbook, wrote a short note in neat letters. "Locked in. Please help. Amira," and slid it under the stall door closest to the hallway. She knew Mr. Ruiz usually started his evening rounds around 5. And she'd seen him pause outside this bathroom before, checking if lights were off, if trash needed emptying. He was the only adult in the building who always looked her in the eye when she said hello. She sat back down, not waiting passively, but watching, listening, ready. Outside, the rain softened to a drizzle. Somewhere down the hall, a door creaked open. Amira didn't flinch. She just sat up straighter, hands in her lap, eyes on the gap under the door. This wasn't over. And for the first time, she wasn't just surviving it, she was taking it back. The floor was cold under Amira's sneakers, but she barely noticed. She sat with her back against the stall wall, eyes fixed on the sliver of light under the bathroom door. Her phone lay on the counter, screen dark, charging slowly from the outlet near the mirror. She didn't dare check it, every second of battery counted. Instead, she listened, footsteps again. Closer this time, not the quick, careless steps from before, but slower, heavier, like someone used to walking alone in empty halls. Then a pause, a soft sigh, the jingle of keys. Her breath caught. A shadow passed under the door, wider this time, steady. Then a low voice, almost to himself. "Lights still on in here?" It was Mr. Ruiz. Amira scrambled to her feet and knocked gently on the stall door. "Mr. Ruiz?" she called, voice quiet but clear. A beat of silence. Then, "Amira? That you?" "Yes, sir. I'm locked in." The shadow shifted. She heard him kneel. Then his face appeared under the gap. Kind eyes, gray stubble, the same faded blue uniform he wore every day. "You okay, Mija?" "I'm fine," she said. And for the first time since the door clicked shut, she almost believed it. He stood, fumbled with his keyring, and unlocked the main door. Cool hallway air rushed in. Amira stepped out, clutching her sketchbook like an anchor. Mr. Ruiz didn't ask what happened right away. He just nodded, eyes scanning her face like he was checking for cracks. "You need water? Someone to call?" She shook her head. "I left a note." "I saw it," he said softly. "Smart girl." He glanced at her phone on the counter. "You record anything?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Good," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Let's get you to Ms. Delgado's room. She's still cleaning up." Amira followed him down the hall, her legs stiff from sitting so long. Rain still tapped against the windows, but the storm had passed. The school felt different now. Not scary, just quiet, like it was finally resting. Ms. Delgado was wiping paint off a table when they walked in. She looked up, eyes widening. "Amira, I was just about to call your house." Then she saw Mr. Ruiz's expression and stopped wiping. "What happened?" Amira didn't cry, didn't yell. She just told it straight. Calm, clear, like she was describing the weather. Who was there? What they said. How long she'd been locked in. When she finished, she pulled her phone from her pocket. It had 12% battery. She played the voice memo. The room went still. Ms. Delgado listened without interrupting. When it ended, she exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay, thank you for telling us. And for recording that." That took courage. Mr. Ruiz crossed his arms. "I'll walk her home." "No," Amira said quickly. "Please don't, my grandma. She worries enough. And my mom's working late again." She looked between them. "Can we just not make it a big thing? I don't want them to get suspended or anything. I don't want it to happen again." Ms. Delgado studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "We won't jump to punishment. But we can't ignore this either. What they did wasn't just mean, it was unsafe. And you deserve to feel safe here." They agreed on a plan. Mr. Ruiz would report it to the vice principal first thing in the morning. Officially, quietly, Ms. Delgado would request a meeting with the school counselor. And Amira? She'd go home like any other day, eat dinner with Grandma, do her homework, and pretend everything was normal. But as she walked home under the dripping trees, hoodie pulled up against the damp air, she knew things had already changed. At home, Grandma was stirring a pot of red beans on the stove, humming an old hymn. "There you are," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Thought the rain stole you." "Just stayed late for art," Amira said, hanging her bag by the door. Grandma gave her a look, the kind that said she knew there was more, but wouldn't push. "Wash up, dinner's almost ready." Amira did as she was told. She ate, helped with dishes, even laughed at one of Grandma's stories about her first job at a bakery. But inside, her mind was racing. Would the school really do something? Or would it fade away like so many other incidents? The next day, nothing seemed different. The same bell rang. The same kids crowded the halls. The same group of girls stood by the lockers, but this time they didn't look at her. They whispered to each other, eyes darting toward the office. By third period, a note came for Amira to report to the counseling office. Her stomach dropped, but she walked in like she belonged there. The counselor, Ms. Lynn, didn't sit behind a desk. She sat in a circle of chairs like they were equals. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Mr. Ruiz and Ms. Delgado filled me in. I'd like to hear it from you if you're comfortable." Amira told her everything again. This time, Ms. Lynn asked gentle questions. "How did that make you feel? What do you need to feel safe moving forward? Is there anything you wish had happened differently?" No blame, no drama, just care. Then something unexpected happened. Later that afternoon, another student, a quiet boy from the tech club, walked into the counselor's office and said, "Those same girls did something like that to me last month. I didn't say anything because I thought no one would believe me." Then a sixth grader spoke up about being followed and mocked near the bus loop. One by one, more voices joined Amira's. The school couldn't ignore it anymore, but the real surprise came 2 days later during lunch. Amira was sitting alone, sketching the way sunlight hit the cafeteria tables when one of the girls, the one who'd slammed the door, walked over. She didn't sit, didn't smile, but she stood there, twisting the strap of her backpack, eyes on the floor. I heard you didn't ask for us to get expelled, she said quietly. Amira looked up. I didn't think you'd do that. The girl swallowed. My dad's been yelling at my mom a lot. I guess I just took it out on you because you never fought back. Amira didn't say it's okay. She didn't forgive her on the spot. But she nodded. I get mad too, she said. I just don't want to hurt people when I am. The girl stood there another second, then walked away. That afternoon, the vice principal called a special session, not a punishment hearing, but a restorative circle. Just the students involved. Ms. Lin, Mr. Ruiz, and Ms. Delgado. No parents. No shouting. Just talking. Amira spoke last. She didn't accuse. Didn't dramatize. She just said, I just wanted to be seen, not targeted. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just for her, but for all of them. Because sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting back, it's speaking up and leaving room for others to grow. The restorative circle didn't fix everything overnight. There were no dramatic apologies or tearful hugs, but something had cracked open, just enough to let a little light in. The vice principal didn't hand out suspensions. Instead, each of the girls was assigned to meet weekly with the school counselor and complete 20 hours of community service, helping Mr. Ruiz organize the supply closet, repainting the faded benches outside the gym, even assisting in the art room during lunch. It wasn't punishment meant to shame. It was work meant to reconnect. Amira noticed the change in small ways. The hallway glances stopped. The whispers vanished. One morning she found a folded note in her locker. Not a threat, but a shaky sorry written in pencil, no name signed. She tucked it into her sketchbook, not because she needed it, but because it meant someone was trying. What surprised her most wasn't their remorse. It was how many other kids started coming forward. A boy from the robotics club admitted he'd been shoved into a locker twice last semester but never told anyone. Because it wasn't that bad? A 7th grader shared that. Someone had been stealing her lunch money for weeks. Even a teacher quietly mentioned to Ms. Lin that she'd seen students cornering others near the bike racks, but assumed it was just kids being kids. Suddenly, the school wasn't pretending anymore. Ms. Delgado turned her art club into a safe space, literally. She hung a sign on the door that read, Quiet Zone Respect. Create. Breathe. Students started drifting in during free periods, not just to draw, but to sit in silence with others who understood what it felt like to carry something heavy inside. Amira still sat in the back, but now she wasn't alone. Sometimes someone would slide into the chair beside her and whisper, Can I see what you're working on? And she'd nod, turning the page just enough for them to see. At home, Grandma still didn't know the full story. Amira kept it that way, not out of fear but protection. She knew how Grandma's hands shook when she worried, how she'd stay up late replaying every what-if in her head. So Amira talked about the mural instead, about how Mr. Ruiz let her sketch him during his break, how he told stories about fixing the school's old piano back in the 90s, how he always carried peppermints in his pocket for the hard days. He's got kind eyes, Grandma said one night, peeling potatoes at the kitchen table. People with kind eyes usually carry a lot of quiet strength. Amira smiled. Yeah, he does. Meanwhile, the counselor, Ms. Lin, started a new peer support group. No adults in the room, just trained student volunteers who'd been through something and wanted to help others feel less alone. To everyone's surprise, one of the girls from the bathroom incident signed up. She didn't talk much at first, but she showed up every week, sitting near the back, listening. Sometimes she'd catch Amira's eye and give a small nod. No words, just acknowledgement. The real turning point came during a rainy Thursday in November. Amira was walking to the library when she heard raised voices near the stairwell. She slowed down, heart tightening, old instincts kicking in. But then she recognized one of the voices. It was the girl who'd written the note. She was standing between a 6th grader and 2 older boys who were mocking the kid's stutter. Back off, the girl said, voice firm. He's not bothering you. The boys laughed at first, but she didn't move. Seriously, walk away. After a tense moment, they did. Amira didn't say anything. She just kept walking, but inside something settled. Change wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was a single person choosing to stand in the right place at the right time. Back in class, teachers started doing subtle things too. Group projects now had clear roles, so no one got left out. Lunch monitors paid attention to who sat alone. The principal even announced a new "See Something, Say Something" box in the main office, not for tattling, but for students to share concerns anonymously. Within a week, it was full of notes, some serious, some silly, all honest. Amira never expected to become a symbol. She didn't want to be the girl who got locked in the bathroom. She just wanted to draw, go home, and feel safe. But in trying to protect herself, she'd accidentally given others permission to speak up too. One afternoon, Ms. Lin asked if she'd be willing to help design a poster for the school's new kindness campaign. Not about rules, she explained. Just about noticing each other, Amira agreed. That weekend, she sketched a hallway filled with students, some laughing, some reading, some standing quietly by windows, but all connected by thin, glowing lines like invisible threads of care. At the bottom, she wrote in soft pencil, "You never know who needs to be seen today." When the posters went up, kids actually stopped to read them. Some even pointed to the quiet figures in the drawing and said, "That's me." As the weeks passed, the tension in the school softened. Not because everyone became best friends, but because people started paying attention. A nod in the hallway, holding a door, asking, "You okay?" and meaning it. Amira still kept to herself most days, but now it was by choice, not fear. And when she walked through the halls, she didn't feel like a ghost anymore. She felt like someone who belonged. Quiet? Yes, but present, seen. And that, more than anything, was the real shock no one saw coming. That one girl's calm truth could ripple through an entire school, not with anger, but with quiet courage that gave others the space to heal too. The morning of the mural unveiling was colder than usual, the kind of crisp that made your cheeks pink and your breath visible in little clouds. Amira arrived early, hoodie zipped up, hands tucked in her pockets, heart doing a quiet drumbeat against her ribs. She hadn't slept much. Not from nerves exactly, more from the weight of something finally coming full circle. The hallway outside the main office had been empty for weeks. Just pale cinderblock walls and a few outdated announcements about bake sales and lost water bottles. Now it was covered in color. Her mural stretched nearly 20 feet, painted over 3 weekends with help from art club, a few volunteers from the peer support group, and even quietly, without fanfare, one of the girls who'd once locked her in that bathroom. They'd worked side by side, mixing paints, taping edges, stepping back to squint at angles. No one mentioned the past. They just painted. At the center stood Mr. Ruiz, not as a hero on a pedestal, but as he was, broom in hand, eyes crinkled in a half smile, wearing his same faded blue uniform. Around him, other faces emerged. The lunch lady handing an apple to a shy kindergartner, the bus driver waving as kids climbed aboard, the quiet boy from tech club fixing a broken keyboard, even the school nurse kneeling to tie a child's shoe. And near the edge, almost blending into the background but still clearly there, was a girl with braids and a sketchbook, Amira herself looking up from her drawing, meeting the viewer's gaze. She hadn't planned to include herself. But Ms. Delgado had said, "You're part of this story too. You belong in the picture." The title, painted in soft, hand-lettered script at the top, simply read, "Scene." By 8 a.m., students started trickling in. At first, they walked past like usual, headphones in, eyes down. But then someone stopped. Then another. Soon a small crowd gathered, not talking, just looking. A 6th grader pointed to the lunch lady and whispered, "That's Ms. Teller. She gave me extra cookies when my dog died." A group of 8th graders stood in front of the tech club boy. "He helped me with my science project," one said, surprised. Amira stayed near the water fountain, pretending to check her phone, but really watching. She saw the girl who'd stood up for the stuttering kid pause in front of the mural, then turn and look straight at her. No words, just a small, real smile. Amira nodded back. The bell rang, but no one moved right away. Teachers didn't rush them. For once, the hallway wasn't just a place to pass through. It was a place to pause. Later that day, during lunch, something else shifted. Amira walked into the cafeteria and saw 2 empty seats at a table near the window. One was next to the quiet boy from tech club, the other next to a girl who'd recently joined the peer support group. They didn't wave or call out. They just looked up, saw her, and slid a tray over slightly, making space. She sat down. No one made a big deal. No one filmed it. They just ate, talked about a math test, complained about the soggy green beans, and laughed when someone spilled their juice. Normal. Easy. The kind of ordinary moment Amira had watched from afar for years. But now she was in it. Weeks passed. The mural stayed up untouched. No graffiti, no mocking notes, just respect. Teachers started using it in lessons. Who do you see here that you usually don't notice? What does it mean to really see someone? Even the principal mentioned it in a morning announcement, not as a disciplinary tool, but as a reminder. Kindness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just paying attention. Amira kept drawing, but now her sketchbook held more faces. Friends, teachers, even strangers on the bus. She still liked the quiet, but she didn't hide in it anymore. Sometimes she'd look up from her page and catch someone smiling at her, not because she was special, but because they knew her now. And she knew them. Then came parent-teacher night. Grandma wore her good church dress, the navy one with the white collar, and carried a thermos of sweet tea, just in case they don't have anything decent to drink. She walked slowly through the halls, eyes wide at the student work pinned everywhere. When they turned the corner and saw the mural, she stopped dead. For a long moment, she just stared. Amira watched her face, the way her eyes softened, the way her lips trembled just slightly. Grandma didn't cry often, but when she reached the part with Amira in it, she reached out and gently touched the wall like she needed to make sure it was real. "You did this?" she asked, voice thick. "I helped," Amira said softly. Grandma turned to her, eyes shining. "You turned pain into something beautiful." Amira swallowed. She hadn't thought of it that way. She just wanted to tell the truth, to show that the people who keep things running, the quiet ones, the helpers, the ones who show up even when no one claps, are worth noticing. That night, after they got home, Grandma didn't turn on the TV like usual. Instead, she sat at the kitchen table with Amira's sketchbook, flipping through pages slowly, tracing lines with her finger. "You see the world different," she said. "Not better, just deeper," Amira smiled. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." "No," Grandma said. "It's a gift." The next Monday, Amira walked into school and found a small envelope taped to her locker. Inside was a folded drawing, a rough sketch of the mural done in pencil with a note. "You helped me see myself too. Thank you." No name, but she knew. She pinned it inside her sketchbook right next to the apology note from weeks ago. Life didn't become perfect. There were still hard days, awkward moments, times when the world felt too loud. But something fundamental had changed, not just in the school but in Amira herself. She no longer carried the weight of being invisible. She'd learned that being seen wasn't about attention, it was about connection. And sometimes the quietest voice could start the loudest change. As she sat in the back row of history class that afternoon, sunlight streaming through the window, she opened her sketchbook to a fresh page. Not to escape, but to create, because now she knew her story mattered, and so did everyone else's.